Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. My name is Mike Weil, and I'm going to start the meeting. I'm a planner with the National Capital Planning Commission, and I will be reviewing the proposed changes that are before us related to the Little Falls Parkway over the next few months. And those will eventually come before our commission during a future commission meeting, most likely in the late spring or summer of this year. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to explain NCPC's interest in the project under the Capper-Crampton Act, to explain our review process and explain what we mean by scoping, since we are now accepting scoping comments. Here is the meeting agenda. We hope to keep our presentation to no more than 15 minutes so that we can really focus on responding to your questions live here tonight. You may submit your questions through our Zoom platform's Q&A function, which is located at the bottom of your screen. And then I and several other planners in the meeting here tonight will verbally respond to each of your questions after the conclusion of our presentation. In terms of meeting roles, I and Andrew Sy from the Montgomery Parks Department will be going through tonight's presentation, and then we have Matt Fliss, who is a senior planner here at NCPC, and Kyle Lucas with the Parks Department, and they will assist Andrew and I in responding to your questions. And finally, we have Diane Sullivan, who is NCPC's Urban Design and Plan Review Division Director, and she will be moderating tonight's meeting by reading your questions out loud so that everyone can hear those. And then she will assign the questions to staff during tonight's meeting to respond to. And before we leave this slide, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we are recording this meeting, and we will post the meeting video to the NCPC project website for those who are not able to attend tonight. So as background, NCPC is the federal government's planning commission within the National Capital Region, which is shown here on this slide map. And we typically review development on federal property within the region, as well as development on District of Columbia property in Washington, D.C. In addition to our federal and district property review responsibilities, our commission also has a defined review role over a network of Stream Valley parks located in Montgomery and Prince George's counties, Maryland, per the 1930 Capper-Crampton Act. The act was intended to preserve stream-adjacent property for stormwater management and environmental protection purposes, as well as to establish a park and playground system for the region. And based on the act's federal appropriations, our commission was given a review role over future development within these parks. And this includes the Little Falls Stream Valley Park, which is where the project before us is located. So NCPC does not own the park property, nor do we manage the property, which is under the purview of the Montgomery Parks Department. Rather, the Capper-Crampton Act and the 1931 agreement gave NCPC a very defined role over future park development to determine whether a proposed action is consistent with a park use or not. And as noted here, our commission regularly interprets park purposes to mean a project that provides public benefit, such as improving the water quality of a stream, stormwater management improvements, providing better access within or to a park with a new trail connection, or constructing a new playground. And we also look to guidance from our federal parks and open space element, which includes policies that relate to projects on Capper-Crampton land. And one final point that I would like to make here is that our review role only applies to permanent park changes and not to operational or interim changes to a park. As part of our commission's review process, we are required to assess the potential future impacts from this park to the natural or from this project to the natural human environment under the National Environmental Policy Act, or is commonly referred to as NEPA. The NEPA process is intended to guide decision-making and ensure that decision makers are able to make an informed decision and NEPA is not intended to determine the outcome of a project. Based on the scope of the current Parkway plans and our previous experience, we believe that an environmental assessment would be an appropriate level of review under NEPA. As part of our review process, we will be consulting with the Maryland Historic Trust to satisfy our commission's review role under the National Historic Preservation Act. And we will also work with the Montgomery Parks Department to prepare the EA since they are the project proponent. So with that quick summary, I would like to now turn the presentation over to Andrew Tsai, who is the project manager for the proposed Parkway improvements on behalf of the Montgomery Parks Department, and he will now briefly walk you through their plans.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. My name is Andrew Tsai, and I'm an engineer with Montgomery County Parks. This image here is a good way to get our bearings of the overall site. At the very left of the site plan, that's the northern terminus of the project. I'm sorry, could you go back one slide, please, Mike? At the very left is the northern terminus of the project at the intersection of Little Falls Parkway and Arlington Road. At the very right of the image is the southern terminus of the project at Little Falls Parkway and Dorset Avenue. A couple of major features in the area, Bethesda Pool. You can see that right next to the Capitol Crescent Trail, which is highlighted in yellow there as well. And the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing of Little Falls Parkway is also highlighted on the roadway. Next slide, please, Mike. Between Arlington Road and Hillendale Road, the proposed Little Falls Parkway road section will consist of a single southbound drive lane that is going to be 12 feet wide, currently proposed to be 12 feet wide, a single northbound drive lane separated by the existing median. At the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing, the existing median refuge will be maintained in place. It's approximately 16 feet wide at that location. We are proposing a new shared use path connection to the existing sidewalk south of Glenbrook Road along the southbound lane of Little Falls Parkway to the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing itself. This is going to be a separated shared use path via either a grass buffer or with a trail barrier or a traffic barrier. We are also proposing intersection improvements at the intersection of Arlington Road and Little Falls Parkway that will consist of making the crossing safer for pedestrians and cyclists. So there's going to be new pavement markings, the curb radii will be adjusted, new signage, potential adjustments to the crossing timing, and reduction in the crossing distance to reduce the amount of time it takes for pedestrians to cross. And finally, in this section, the council between Arlington Road and Hillendale Road, the Montgomery County Council did approve removal of unused asphalt pavement. So the extraneous asphalt pavement to be removed is shown in the green hatching on this site plan here. Next slide, please. Between Hillendale Road, which is going to be on the left of the site plan, and Dorset Avenue, which is to the right, the cross-section will also consist of a single 12-foot southbound drive lane separated by existing median to the 12-foot northbound drive lane. In this section of the road, we are proposing low-profile separators to close off the unused northbound drive lane and the unused southbound drive lane. In the unused southbound drive lane, we are proposing to provide a 10-foot wide buffered bike lane. That's just going to be separated via the pavement markings and the low-profile separators. At the intersection of Dorset Avenue and Little Falls Parkway, we are also assessing Vision Zero-based intersection safety improvements, consisting of looking at the curb radii, providing accessible concrete landing pads, and improving the connection to the Little Falls Trail. In this section, the Montgomery County Council recommended full retaining of the pavement that is on the site right now. So we were not proposing any removal of existing pavement at this location, other than the temporary interim crossover that was installed as part of the interim pilot condition that's been in place since November of 2022. Next slide, please. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you. The intent of the scoping period, which is part of our review process under NEPA, is to request feedback from the public on the EA's assessment topics by which we will use to assess the project's potential impacts. And you should submit your comments to us in writing so that we can consider those as part of our NEPA review process. And I will go through how you can do that at the end of my presentation. Here's the purpose and need for the project, and this will be reflected in the future environmental assessment report. The purpose is to reduce the potential for collisions between Parkway and Capitol Crescent Trail traffic to achieve the Vision Zero goal. And this is based on a history of serious injuries and crashes at the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing over Little Falls Parkway. The EA will consider two different alternatives: a build alternative, which consists of the current Montgomery Parks Department plan referral to NCPC, and Andrew just described those plans to you earlier. And we would also include a no-build alternative as required by NEPA, and this is meant to be used as a comparison baseline by which to assess the build alternative. And in this case, we would assume the no-action alternative to be the original four-lane Parkway configuration that existed prior to all of the previous road diet changes that have been made to this part of the Parkway here. The EA will only consider one build project alternative, since that is what Montgomery Parks has referred to NCPC for review. And we can consider other alternatives only if referred to us by the applicant, which is the Parks Department. And this is based on the review role that was given to NCPC through the Capper-Crampton Act. The future EA document will assess a number of impact topics, and here is a preliminary list that we've identified so far. And we are now seeking topic ideas from you all as part of our public scoping process. So here's how you may submit your scoping comments to us, either online through the project website or in writing by mail. And we welcome all of your scoping comments through the end of the official March 29th deadline. If you would like to send in your comments through regular mail, then you must have those postmarked by March 29th to be officially considered by NCPC as part of our NEPA review process. And if you choose to submit your comments online, then you should submit those to us through the NCPC website, www.ncpc.gov. And you would access the submission portal by clicking on the Comment Opportunities tab as shown here. And then you will click on the comments button to access the actual portal submission window. Here's our project dedicated page, which is on the NCPC website, where you can find additional information about our NEPA policies, the Capper-Crampton Act, and you may also access the Park Department submission to NCPC by hitting the project page button, and you can view the referred plans, which Andrew just covered during his portion of the presentation, as well as additional project background. So here is our anticipated review schedule. Once the scoping period ends, you will have several additional opportunities to provide us with your comments. First, we will release the draft EA for a 30-day public comment period, most likely in a month or two. And then once that concludes, leading up to our formal review by the commission, you will have another opportunity to comment, and you may also sign up to testify before our commission during its meeting as well. And then one final item that I would like to note here is that we do plan to brief our commission on this project during a future commission meeting, which will be available to the public. And this is so our commission will have the background and appropriate history that has led up to the current proposed Parkway changes prior to their taking a formal commission action on the project. So with that, that concludes our presentation here tonight. We are now available to answer your questions using the Q&A function in Zoom, and I've provided you with a screenshot to show you where you can locate the Q&A button. And before I open up the meeting floor to questions, please remember that if you would like to submit scoping comments to us, then you must do that in writing, either through regular mail or through the comment submission page, as I just described to you earlier. Thank you, and I will now turn the meeting over to Diane Sullivan.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so we're going to get started with the questions that we already have in the Q&A chat. I'm going to go through them one by one. And so the first one is, how are you coordinating with Montgomery County Department of Transportation and Maryland Department of Transportation so that this area is planned holistically? Goldsboro River, Little Falls Parkway, Massachusetts, ? So I'm going to hand that over to Andrew or Kyle.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I can provide a little more insight on that. So the previously published planning board reports, as well as the council memos, contain a lot more detailed information on the traffic and growth analysis for the area. But I do just want to sort of hit the highlights. We have been coordinating with DOT throughout the project process in the last few years, and DOT actually helped relocate the signals and will help relocate the traffic signals as part of the project. And they have reviewed our volumes as well as our growth factor modeling. Going back to the West Bart sector plan and various other plans, master planning documents for the overall area, Little Falls Parkway is not considered a primary means of vehicle conveyance, though we do acknowledge, obviously, it functions as an important road for people to travel back and forth throughout the area. Our modeling showed that right now, with a 2-lane road, there's sufficient capacity for a large amount of traffic increase compared to current conditions. We also know from recent counts that traffic volumes, not only on Little Falls Parkway, but on adjacent state highways, has steadily decreased since the start of since roughly 2000. So we think that there has been that coordination with both SHA, with DOT, and we have been sort of proactive in looking at what future traffic growth in the area might do. And we think the road, a 2-lane Little Falls Parkway, does have more than adequate capacity to handle the anticipated future traffic growth.
Thank you. I actually have one more for you right now. Are you planning to provide this area as a smart street, smart city solution, including LED lights, cameras, and sensors?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'd like to get Kyle's input on this as well. We typically don't light our trails or our roadways the majority of the time, unless the traffic encountered or safety issues warrant it. I know that in Stream Valley Park, that sometimes the lights can cause issues with migratory wildlife, such as birds. But that's certainly, I think, a good question and something that we could look into. And if Kyle has anything to add to that.
No, I think that's a good summary. Along our parkways and in our Stream Valley parks, we're very sensitive to when and where we add lighting. So I don't believe any of our parkways are currently lit, and that's likely not something that we would do.
Thank you. Next question, comment, and then a question. I am confused as to the why this project is being undertaken. There are walking bicycle paths that parallel the parkway. The key concern was and has been the safety of the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing. What has been done to date only increases the risks by narrowing the parkway to 1 lane in either direction with no center median. Please explain what the mission and goals of this project are, and why what has been done, which to me seems lacking engineering excellence, addresses these goals. Thank you. Probably Kyle.
Yeah, so I can. Yeah, so I can start. Just from a kind of pedestrian and bicycle network connectivity standpoint. I'm currently leading a Capitol Crescent Trail facility plan process, and one of the key things that we're hearing on that is how overcrowded the trail is. So improving connectivity, at the trail crossing as well as along Little Falls Parkway generally is a good goal. It will help relieve some of the congestion on the Capitol Crescent Trail and generally just improve connectivity. If you're coming from points east of Little Falls Parkway, say on Dorset, the ability to connect to a bike lane that would take you up to the Capitol Crescent Trail prevents you from either having to bike in the road to access the Capitol Crescent Trail on Dorset or from using the sidewalk there. Additionally, road diets are proven to slow vehicles down, and we know that slower vehicle speeds improve reaction times, reduce the severity of crashes and accidents. So we're kind of looking at both those things, both the road diet aspect as well as the bike ped connectivity aspect. This project helps meet both of those goals.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, the next question, I think this will probably go to Matt at NCPC. Would NCPC consider allowing 2 northbound lanes from Dorset Avenue to Hillendale?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So just to kind of reiterate what Mike had said in the presentation, the application that's before NCPC is the one that has been approved by the council and transmitted to NCPC. That's what's under consideration right now.
Thank you, Matt. How does this align with Montgomery County Parks plan to widen and redevelop the parallel Capitol Crescent Trail? Andrew or Kyle?
Yeah. So again, I mentioned in the last response that one of the things we're hearing on the Capitol Crescent Trail facility plan is that there is significant crowding. So we would, as we collect survey, we would be looking where feasible to widen or potentially separate bicyclists from pedestrians along the Capitol Crescent Trail. And, one of the things we've heard from our survey is the need to improve connections to the Capitol Crescent Trail. And so naturally looking to improve connectivity along Little Falls Parkway makes a ton of sense.
Okay, and then I have a comment and a question here. With hundreds of plastic bollards, barriers, and reflectors, Little Falls Parkway looks more like a work zone and less like a parkway. Does NCPC feel that the appearance of Little Falls Parkway is consistent with other parkways in the DC area? Would NCPC consider requiring the final design be free of plastic bollards and barriers? And I may start with Andrew and Kyle to confirm the amount of plastic in the proposed design before NCPC.
Yeah. Our proposed and council approved site plan has no flex posts. It's just going to be pavement markings. We do have the low profile separators to close off the unused drive lanes. And those look like little parking sort of curb stops. They're just more rounded. So we call them armadillos. But we're not proposing the use of any plastic bollards. There could potentially be a traffic barrier separating the protected shared use path, but that will look more like a guardrail type of barrier because it needs to provide protection to the trail users from vehicles. But there's no flex posts proposed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hold on one second. Okay. How quickly could the roadway revert back to divided lanes? Maybe Andrew and Kyle, I get what that would entail.
Yeah. If that's asking about the potentially going back to divided lanes.
I think yes. There's a lot of long comments about how it's not working now. So how quickly could the roadway revert back to divided lanes?
Yeah, certainly. So the council approved site plan does consist of divided lanes with the existing grass median. And we do have a potential schedule that Mike highlighted earlier as to how long the NCPC approval process would take. Kyle and I recorded a presentation on the Montgomery Parks project website where we gave additional information on our process and our end after NCPC. Our goal is to have 50 to 75% construction drawings completed by June, which coincides with the NCPC action date. And then we would proceed with any environmental or other transportation-related permits throughout the summer with the hope of getting all our permits lined up by fall with potential construction happening in late fall. Kyle and I have received questions in the past few weeks about returning to an interim condition of 1 lane in each direction, potentially using flex posts or other similar measures. At this moment, we don't have any plans to proceed with reverting back to that interim condition. NCPC has accelerated the review process substantially, I think. And I think with the overall timeline of NCPC approval potentially by June, we think the focus should be on implementing the permanent solution as opposed to another interim stage before implementing another final stage after that.
Thank you. Next comment and question, Matt, you might want to take this one again. Would NCPC consider revising the Parkway design so that there are 2 stacking lanes capable of holding 20 vehicles just north of Dorset Avenue?
Yeah, this kind of goes back, I think, to the previous question. Again, the application that is before our commission is the project that was referred by the county council and the parks, Montgomery Parks. So that is the project as defined that we are considering now, and through the NEPA process reviewing impacts. So.
Okay, thank you. This next question, this diagram shows building on the existing road. Is your plan to eliminate traffic here? If so, how will folks drive into Bethesda? Andrew or Kyle, does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And
okay.
It might be helpful to bring up the site plan again.
Maybe Mike bring up the site plan. That's a great idea.
But to go to the question, so the council approved site plan, it does close off 2 of the 4 lanes. So we're not building a building on the road, but 2 of the lanes will be closed off to vehicle traffic. In the southbound drive lane, we're going to be providing a separated shared use path north of the Capitol Crescent Trail, and south of the Capitol Crescent Trail, we are going to be providing a buffered bike lane. So there will be an alternate means of transportation along that segment of the road. But yeah, to go back to the question, 2 of the lanes will be closed off to vehicles. As to how vehicles are going to be able to drive into Bethesda, the road itself will remain open to vehicle traffic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And I'll add to that the traffic modeling that we've done out to year 2040 shows there's sufficient capacity on the roadway as a 2-lane road, and that the traffic analysis done by the consultant that one of the neighborhoods hired showed that all the intersections, even with just the 2 lanes, are operating at sufficiently acceptable levels. So even with the road diet, we're still maintaining access to and from downtown Bethesda at acceptable levels. And so we're confident that this isn't going to prevent anybody from getting into Bethesda.
Okay, Andrew and Kyle, I have a bunch of questions for you. The first one, the initial parks proposal had a 2-direction roadway on one of the over-engineered current parkway. This would make the unused side available for additional parkland. How does the current proposal exceed the parkland objectives beyond those in the original proposal?
Yeah, so I can speak to this. So, our original proposal of having the 2 lanes on one side of the roadway would allow us to essentially build a shared use path that would be separated by the existing grass median as well as some additional space. And that would have been open to both bicyclists and pedestrians and would have been a nice, safe buffer. The current configuration has essentially a buffered bike lane, so that would be open just for bicyclists. There was a lot of dialogue with the community and with the county council, and ultimately this was their recommendation. We still believe that providing connectivity for bicyclists is still very important, and so we still think this helps increase circulation for non-motorists along the parkway.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, there was a comment that right now in the north, move this so I can see. Okay. Right now in the northbound, southbound temporary lanes, there is no barrier between the lanes, just a yellow line. This has been unsafe and confusing. So Kyle, you just corrected that, right?
Yeah, so the existing condition right now has 2 lanes on one side with no median other than just the yellow dividing line. A 2-lane shoulderless road with just yellow lines for a divider is the condition we have on Beach Drive and Sligo Creek Parkway, and is probably one of the most common roadway configurations in the county. So while we understand there are some concerns with that, we don't find that to be on a 25-mile-an-hour roadway to be a dangerous configuration.
Given that there are, one, Montgomery County neighborhoods in great need of parks, and two, that the growth of population demands greater access to River Road via Arlington, why are you expending scarce funds on an unneeded project?
So I think we would say that this is a needed project, you know, both at the crossing of the Capitol Crescent Trail itself, you know, introducing the interim road diet there had a significant impact on the number of crashes and the severity of those crashes. So we know that 2-lane roads versus 4-lane roads, you know, have safety implications. We also, based on our speed studies of the 2-lane pilot as well as the 4-lane condition south of Dorset, we know that there are some pretty major safety concerns, you know, south of Dorset, between Dorset and River. We measured, I think it was like over 20 or 23% of the traffic was going over 40 miles per hour, with multiple people going over 65 miles an hour, versus between Hillendale and Dorset, where it was still 2 lanes, only 5% of vehicles were going over 40 miles an hour. So this is a safety project. It's a Vision Zero project in many ways. And also going back to, you know, my role in leading the Capitol Crescent Trail facility plan, you know, we're hearing from people that the trail itself is overcrowded. And so providing a parallel alternate route is a great way to relieve some of that, and also just generally provide better connectivity. And I'll just close it out by saying, you know, again, we've done traffic studies that take into account all of the development in the area, including Westbard, and you know, even projecting out to the year 2040, 2 lanes are still sufficient based on our modeling.
So next question, as a daily walker of Little Falls Parkway and the Capitol Crescent Trail, my question is, why is there a need for closing lanes of Little Falls Parkway beyond the immediate area of the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing?
Yeah, again, you know, when we led the planning effort, there was one person who I remember spoke at the planning board who had explained that, you know, they lived, I think, south of River and east of the Parkway, and, you know, so not everybody has direct access right to the Capitol Crescent Trail. Some people would prefer to bike into Bethesda by, say, getting onto Little Falls Parkway at Dorset and taking that up to the Capitol Crescent Trail, as opposed to either biking in the road or along the sidewalk to connect to the trail. So, you know, a big park's goal is improving bike ped connectivity to our existing trails, and this is a great way to do it.
Has the commission considered a culvert tunnel for the Capitol Crescent Trail under Little Falls Parkway?
I worked on the facility plan, and I'm sorry, Kyle, I'll just add a little bit from in 2019, when we implemented the interim road diet at the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing, we studied a few different alternatives for recommendation to the planning board. One of the options on the table at that time was a tunnel. Ultimately, an actual pedestrian bridge was more popular than the tunnel, but those options were not recommended due to cost and environmental impacts in the Stream Valley buffer.
Thank you. Okay, there is a large amount of development planned for Westbard, a community west of River Road. This will create significant additional travel between Westbard and downtown Bethesda. Please explain how the potential impacts will be assessed and who will be doing the assessment. I know we've already answered this, but maybe a quick recap.
Yeah, I can just add to that, you know, that we've done with the planning department traffic modeling out to the year 2040 that it takes into account all of the growth in the region, and we find that 2 lanes is still sufficient. I know Andrew and I have talked in previous meetings about when you look at the state roads, River Road, Mass Ave, and many of those, you know, going back to the year 2000, we're seeing, you know, pretty major declines in volumes. So I think we have to take that, you know, development into account with the conditions that we're seeing, you know, in the field, which is declining. And in addition to that, you know, when Westbard and all those developments are coming in, they're responsible for doing traffic modeling that models the impact of those developments. And, on one hand, you would think that adding more apartments is just going to totally increase the number of trips. But you also have to consider that those developments also are including things like grocery stores. So some trips that may have taken Little Falls to Arlington to go to the Safeway, they might be going to the new grocery store in Westbard. So, we rely on the planning department and the analysis that they've done, projecting again to year 2040. And those show clearly that there is sufficient capacity on Little Falls Parkway as a 2-lane road to accommodate that growth.
Okay, and we got a question here. Is your data applicable to current and future use? This was relative to COVID. Many people work from home, but Kyle, I think you just answered that. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, and again, looking at the traffic volumes on most of the major roads going back to the year 2000 or 2005, we see a steady decline. Even before COVID, telework rates were increasing. They're still increasing. It seems like we've settled into kind of a hybrid work model where people aren't exclusively going to the office 5 days a week. And so, yeah, we've looked at post-COVID data and looked at the larger 25-year trends.
Matt, this is a question about NEPA. Can you explain again why you cannot consider additional alternatives under this EA? This seems counter to the NEPA process for either an EA or EIS.
Sure. Yeah, I can try to respond to that. So basically, NCPC must evaluate reasonable alternatives. So in this case, we're anticipating evaluating the action alternative, which is the proposal as approved by the county council, and transmitted to NCPC, and then the no action alternative, which is the baseline for comparison. Basically, we've determined that this is reasonable because the action alternative is what, again, the county council has approved. This is what's been transmitted to NCPC for consideration. That is the application. NCPC doesn't have a role in determining what the project is, as that's up to the local jurisdiction, which in this case is Montgomery Parks. So the commission is really just tasked with evaluating and approving or disapproving what's been submitted by Montgomery Parks.
Thank you. I think we are back to Andrew and Kyle. Do you intend to improve the sidewalk between the Capitol Crescent Trail and Arlington Road on the north side of the Parkway? Connectivity to Parks parking lot on the opposite of Arlington is dangerous to pedestrians.
Yeah, that is included in our concept plan and is absolutely something that we feel very strongly in improving.
Okay, I support enhancements at the intersection of Arlington Road. When will a dedicated right turn lane be restored on the outbound lane of Little Falls Parkway?
I can answer that one. The permanent configuration will have a dedicated right turn lane from northbound Little Falls Parkway to Arlington Road.
Can you summarize the data that demonstrates that the new configuration reduces cut-through traffic through neighboring streets as a result of the reconfiguration?
Sure, and the previously published planning board reports have a lot more information on that aspect of the data, but we found that the cut-through traffic in adjacent neighborhood streets increased after implementation of a 24-hour closure during the weekends. As well as on Fridays. So after there were 2 phases of the pilot project that resulted in both an open parkways, pedestrian and cycle use along one segment of the parkway, and then at least 2 lanes open to vehicles at the other times. We redid the traffic counts at over 7 different locations throughout the adjacent neighborhoods. And we found substantial reductions in the amount of traffic, amount of volume of cars that were going through the neighborhood after the parkway was opened back up.
Thank you. Have you considered a bridge that would allow walkers, runners, and bikers who use the Capitol Crescent Trail to more safely cross Little Falls Parkway?
Yeah, going back to sort of the discussion about the facility plan in 2019, that was one of the options that we studied and ultimately was not recommended to the Montgomery County Planning Board because of the cost and the environmental impacts to the Stream Valley buffer.
Do you have a cost of what you are proposing to do?
Yeah, the current council approved alternate we believe is going to be in the neighborhood of $600,000 for construction.
Okay. Is there going to be Wi-Fi?
We are not planning on Wi-Fi.
How will construction affect the entrance to the swimming pool parking lot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I saw an email about that last week as well. Mike, are you able to pull the plan up again? So right now, the Bethesda Pool parking lot functions as a de facto connection between the Little Falls Trail connection, which is further to the northeast. It's off this map, unfortunately, but along Hillendale Road, there's a raised crosswalk, and that connects the Bethesda Pool to the Little Falls Trail. And then from there, the only way to access the Capitol Crescent Trail is by going through the Bethesda swimming pool. During our preliminary discussions with DGS, which operates the Bethesda swimming pool, they had indicated that on occasion there are conflicts between cars and people trying to get from the Little Falls Trail to the Capitol Crescent Trail. So on this plan, what we're showing is a narrowing of that driveway to the Bethesda pool from Little Falls Parkway to a one-way exit only, and typically only egress during during emergencies. And we think that would improve the safety of the connection between the Capitol Crescent Trail and the Little Falls Trail tremendously, as well as help traffic flow along that stretch of Little Falls Parkway between Hillendale Road and Arlington Road as well.
Where can we access the traffic engineering consulting reports that analyze the impact of the project on current and future traffic growth?
That's available in the previously published Montgomery County Planning Board reports.
And Mike, do you have that website on your PowerPoint slide?
I do not.
Okay.
I believe, yeah, I can send that out. Is that just that's just on the Andrew? Is that just on the Little Falls Parkway project website?
Yeah, we can link it on our Montgomery Parks Little Falls Parkway website as well. We'll
Okay.
just link directly to the PDFs that are currently on the Montgomery County Planning Board website.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. How did Parks take over control of a parkway from the Department of Transportation? Shouldn't it be primary in this plan?
So I can talk to that. DOT never controlled Little Falls Parkway. This is going back to what Mike was covering earlier. This land was acquired with Capper-Crampton Act funds, and have been part of essentially administered and cared for by the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. But we do have traffic signals on the parkway, so we do coordinate with MCDOT as we do with our other parkways.
Okay, so could you review again how the route of the bike lanes will run on the section between Hillendale and Dorset? As I understand it, the bike lanes will be on one portion of the divided parkway with two-way bike traffic on one of the divided lanes. And I don't know, Mike, if you can, yeah, Mike, does your pointer work by any chance, or can you? I don't see anything moving, so good to know. But
I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to access that.
I don't know that it's possible.
I think I can give a good explanation here. So,
Okay.
Looking at this plan on the, the top side, you can see, the side that has the majority of the green at the trail crossing. That's the essentially the north side. That side is going to have pavement removal, and then south of Hillendale, it'll have essentially low profile barriers and cross striping to essentially block that lane off. On the south side, there will be, and you can see this in the bottom left corner, there will be a 10-foot two-way cycle track running from Dorset all the way north to the existing shared use path at the northern terminus of Little Falls. And that'll be separated with a 6-foot striped buffer with a low profile delineator. And then you'll have the 12-foot lane. So as of now, we're proposing one two-way cycle track on the existing southbound pavement. separated with a 6-foot buffer, low profile separator, and then the 12-foot travel lane next to it. At this time, we're not proposing any bike connectivity on the north side, but we are still installing those delineators to keep vehicular traffic out of that area while we maintain the pavement as directed by the council and keep that area open for emergency access if needed.
Why is the pavement being retained between Hillendale and Dorset?
So the parks concept had included, our original concepts had included pavement removal throughout. The county council directed us to retain pavement between Dorset and Hillendale, partially in order to provide the emergency access, but also so that that pavement remains and we can monitor the conditions, given the concerns about development and increased traffic. And part of the reason to retain that is, typically emergency vehicles need about 22 feet of continuous pavement so that if a car breaks down or something happens, they're able to navigate around that or deploy as necessary. And so retaining that pavement allows for that, again, 22 feet.
Okay, the Montgomery County Council charged parks with cooperating with the surrounding communities. Vision Zero also asks for cooperation. Could the parks plan be amended now to incorporate some better ideas?
So at this point, we have a county council approved plan. We were directed by the council when we received approval to keep the community informed of what's happening, when it's happening, and what the impacts are. So we've made updates to our website. Andrew and I have recorded a presentation providing some details on what the current plans are. And additionally, we'll be meeting with the Citizens Coordinating Committee of Friendship Heights next week. So we're doing our best to keep the surrounding communities informed of what's happening. We had a extensive public engagement process, both through the planning board and going to the county council. But that being said, to the extent that we receive comments, that meet the county council direction and can be incorporated into final design, we're certainly open and we'll be reviewing comments like that. But we do have direction from the county council as to what this configuration looks like. And so we're moving forward with that, bringing that to final design.
So we have a question. Could data be presented better on the benefits so that car drivers who don't seem to understand can get a better sense of what a road diet is and how many lives of people and wildlife will be saved, injuries reduced, carbon emissions, etc.? Matt, maybe this goes to the NEPA analysis.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and good to reiterate that the NEPA analysis will identify both adverse impacts as well as beneficial impacts. So to the extent that those do exist, they'll actually be identified in the NEPA in the environmental assessment. So a good comment there.
With the speeding on the portion between Dorset and River, wouldn't it be safer to make that portion 2 lanes, 1 in each direction?
I mean, I think the same conclusions that we've drawn between the pilot section between Dorset and Arlington and Hillendale, I think those same takeaways would apply to that section. We started with a smaller pilot from Dorset to Arlington and Hillendale, and so we're moving that piece forward at this time.
Okay. This is a long one with several questions, and I think it is for Andrew. Did I understand, Andrew, to say that there could be removal of pavement near adjacent to Glenbrook Road? In any case, shouldn't you extend the definition of the NB terminus to include Glenbrook and Fairfax roads? The official terminus of the Little Falls Parkway plan is Arlington Road, but the plans affect the roads beyond that intersection. What immediate changes are planned? Will you please emphasize improvements to the Arlington Road intersection?
Yeah, sure. And we can go back to the site plan that shows the intersection at Arlington Road and Little Falls Parkway. Right now, north of the intersection of Arlington Road, the Parkway is already 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. we would be removing a little bit of the extraneous pavement because there's a widened shoulder in that area near the parking lot for the Capitol Crescent Trail. At the intersection of Arlington Road itself, we're going to be providing, you can see the new, and I don't know if it's possible to see the cursor, but you can see the new right turn lane from northbound Little Falls Parkway to Arlington Road. The curb radii along the intersection are going to be redone to provide improved safety for pedestrians and cyclists who are going to be utilizing that crossing to get to the new separated shared use path, protected shared use path, which you can sort of see represented by the pavement markings as well as the green solid pavement marking over there as well. And then the actual crossing distance along the sidewalks northbound on Little Falls Parkway, crossing Arlington Road, as well as the crosswalk from Arlington Road across Little Falls Parkway to the new protected shared use path. The crossing distance will be slightly reduced and the traffic signal timing will be adjusted to ensure that safety is provided, but also balanced with the amount of cars that'll be right turning as well.
I think this one might be for Matt. Given your current mandate, will you consider improving stormwater management as part of this EA? If not, can you consider improved stormwater management as part of the scoping process and the environmental assessment?
Yes, so as part of the EA, we will certainly be taking a look at water resources, including stormwater. And so we would coordinate closely with Montgomery Parks to understand any stormwater impacts, given the change in pervious or impervious surfaces as part of the project.
Back to Andrew and Kyle, will this increase bicycle traffic on Little Falls Stream Valley Trail? This is a path utilized to walk dogs, and it does not seem to be constructed for any increase in volume.
Yeah, so, I think if somebody would prefer to, Andrew was kind of highlighting earlier that the existing connection between the Capitol Crescent Trail and the Little Falls Trail is kind of through the Bethesda Pool parking lot and then across Hillendale. And so I think to the extent that somebody wants to ride on, continuous, pavement, you would be able to take the Little Falls Trail south to Dorset, cut across Dorset, and then take the two-way buffered bike lane up to the trail crossing. So we do think it would increase, certainly would increase bike traffic along Little Falls Parkway. And I'll also add that we are in the design process of preparing to repave the Little Falls Trail. We know that is in pretty rough shape, so we are looking at doing that already.
Are there plans to extend the bike lane from Dorset Avenue to River Road and further to the Massachusetts Avenue and providing a connectivity of the bike trail to the Capitol Crescent Trail at Mass Ave? Yeah,
so I think certainly there's good reasoning that you would, connect bike lanes all the way south on Little Falls Parkway. We're not currently looking at that. You could do a similar, road diet between River and Dorset, but south of River, you've got a two-lane road, an existing two-lane road with limited shoulders, and that would be a little trickier to add. That would likely require adding, a lot more pavement. But I think that's something that we could certainly look into.
Actually, just note that we've had, I think, 3 more questions of the same question about increasing bicycle connectivity between Dorset and to River and Massachusetts Avenue.
Yeah, and I'll also just add for anybody who's interested, in 1979, NCPC actually reviewed a bike lane and Little Falls bike trail project that included adding bike lanes along all of Little Falls Parkway. So it kind of interesting that this many years later, we're still talking about some of the same stuff.
Yep. Have you considered the views of the residents who will be most impacted by the modifications that are being proposed?
I would say that, we have, a lot of miles of parkways, both Little Falls Parkway, Beach Drive, and Sligo Creek Parkway, and we have certain kind of standards and kind of there's a historic, design, things you'd look at, and so we certainly, the condition right now with kind of orange water-filled barriers, that's not what the final position or design will look like. So we certainly do think that we could, we will be improving the final look.
And I should mention, I'm sorry. I
Yes,
just
go
want to also add that as far as public outreach goes, we have had numerous public meetings about this. There was a public planning board hearing as well. It went through planning board review, and then it also went through a county council review process, both through the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, as well as the full county council. And at every step along that way, there were certainly not only for opportunities for input to parks, but input to elected officials, as well as the planning board members and other interested stakeholders. And as Kyle touched on earlier, we are certainly still open and will continue to be open throughout the design process for additional comments and feedback regarding the design.
What impact, if any, do you foresee on the ingress and egress of Washington Episcopal School during drop-off and pickup periods?
That's a good question. Our project right now does not go further south than Dorset Avenue. So we are not anticipating any substantial impacts to that driveway that goes in and out to Washington Episcopal School.
Who controls the Parkway from the parking lot north of Arlington all the way to Bradley?
There's a roughly north of that entrance to the parking lot, it transitions from park right-of-way to DOT right-of-way.
Why don't you wait until development at Westbard is complete before digging up the pavement?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit earlier. All that development in Westbard, in order for that to gain approval from the planning board, included traffic analysis. So did the Westbard sector plan, and in both those instances, they projected out on full builds and found that there's still significant, still plenty of roadway capacity even with the 2-lane configuration. So there's not really a need to wait for that development to complete. And on top of that, Bethesda being such a popular area, development's probably never going to stop. So I think delaying for one development will lead to delaying for another. And based on the data we have, we're confident that 2 lanes is sufficient.
Can you confirm that this plan shows the original median from the pool to river will stay in place with 1 lane of traffic on each side? Also, why bother removing any pavement? Why don't you just add the same barrier you propose in the other areas?
Yeah, so I can confirm that the plan does show the original grass median will stay in place between south of Hillendale Road down all the way to River Road. We're not touching anything south of Dorset Avenue. And as far as the question about the pavement removal, that was approved by the county council between Hillendale Road and Arlington Road. That is where the Capitol Crescent Trail crosses Little Falls Parkway. So the reason behind the permanent removal of the pavement in that location was to ensure continued safety at the trail crossing, as well as the environmental benefits. Touching on the stormwater management question that was asked about the EA earlier, removing impervious area provides substantial stormwater management benefits as well,
especially in a Stream Valley Park.
Thank you. Will the bike lanes have actual through access between Dorset and Bradley?
So I know there is an existing counterflow bike lane on Glenbrook, but the 2-way bike lane essentially will transition on the north end into the existing shared use path that's there now. And that shared use path, I believe, does go all the way to Bradley.
And I'm just going to reiterate for everyone who's joined in the middle or who's been on the whole time, we're still going to try and get through all of the questions. I realize some of them are repetitive, but depending on when people joined, we're just going to keep answering them. So next question. At the time the traffic studies were performed, many of the structures that are now being built or approved in Bethesda and in Westbard were not complete. How do we get a new traffic study done to reflect this additional population? Is a new study planned?
Yeah, to sort of touch on what we have discussed about the traffic studies and our growth modeling. Our growth forecast takes into account all the known development at the time we did the forecast, which was last year or late 2022. it takes into account all the known development in the downtown Bethesda area, and it adds on a growth factor based on anticipated population growth, not only in the Bethesda area, but all local jurisdictions within the overall DMV area. And that gives us an overall number to sort of estimate what things will look like in 2040. So it does take into account the known development. It takes into account potential future development. So we think those numbers do encompass what may be built in the area in the future.
Why not simply add a traffic light at the intersection? Cyclists currently ignore the stop sign, putting safety solely on drivers.
In the 2019 facility plan, we did study a potential concept that rerouted the Capitol Crescent Trail to the intersection at Arlington Road and Little Falls Parkway, and then crossed Little Falls Parkway at that intersection to get back to the Capitol Crescent Trail. Ultimately, Parks did not recommend that concept for approval to the planning board because it resulted in delays for both trail users and drivers. Because of the amount of trail users that would be crossing the road, the red light for drivers would be pretty substantial, and we found that it would add 30 seconds of travel time to drivers trying to travel up Little Falls Parkway. And to give, I guess, a little more history after that, so in 2019, the planning board did not approve the Parks recommendation of a permanent road diet, and asked us to study shifting the trail to the intersection at Arlington Road, but ultimately that was sort of removed from the CIP by the Montgomery County Council.
Okay, I hope that everyone, please let me know if you can't hear me. I was having some internet problems there for a second. We are going to resume. What is the deadline for input to design for the Parkway?
Well, maybe I can speak to that in terms of the NEPA process while we're here this evening. Scoping comments should be submitted by March 29th to be considered. So I'd recommend, if you have comments on the scope that we've discussed today, or design comments, please submit those by the 29th. We will be coordinating with Montgomery Parks.
Okay. And I have here regarding better data on what road diets are all about, deaths avoided. That's great. It's in the EA, but can it be much more prominently displayed up front? I guess, Matt, that's sort of a comment question.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the impacts will be analyzed in the EA, as I mentioned, both adverse as well as beneficial. I think the other part of the comment is really related to, it seems, to Vision Zero and what's the goals and the policies set forth by Montgomery Parks and the county. So certainly hear that comment. So thank you.
We have a new question, but it is a repeat. The traffic study was performed in August when there was no school traffic and less commuter traffic. Will a study be done during normal conditions?
Our traffic counts were all done outside of the summer break time of year, and additional data is available on that in the planning board reports that were previously published.
And have you studied the traffic patterns to and from the Bethesda Pool onto Hillendale?
We know that Bethesda Pool gets a lot of traffic on certain weekend events during the summer season, and we are taking that into account when we look at the potential configuration of the driveway from Little Falls Parkway. But we are not planning to modify the entrance along Hillendale Road.
I have a restated question, which might mean I didn't get to the first one yet. The earlier analysis stated that the barriers between the roadway and adjacent bike lanes are less safe than having 2 lanes on one side. Why are you going with the less safe alternative?
Yeah, I think, as I was explaining earlier, having, a 20 plus foot grass median between the traffic lanes and, a shared use path would obviously be a very safe configuration. We're working, partly based on what the county council directed us to do, and so based on having the vehicles split by that grass median requires, you know, a buffered bike lane closer to moving traffic. But the configuration we've proposed is not very different than most bike lanes like you'd find on Old Georgetown Road or throughout much of downtown Silver Spring. So it's still very much a safe configuration.
Where can I see an overview map of what the completed project will look like? Matt, do you, or Andrew?
Certainly for NCPC, if you go to the project website, which Mike had brought up, there is a link to the materials that were provided, referred by Montgomery Parks, so you can see that whole package there. It includes all the diagrams. And then Andrew probably can also weigh in on that.
And on the Montgomery Parks project website, we link to the council approved site plan PDF as well.
Okay, I missed the beginning. This is jumping around. Is the buffered bike lane going to be shared with pedestrians? And if not, where would they go in the reorganized road?
Yeah, so from the Capitol Crescent Trail north to the existing shared use path, that section we would consider essentially a shared use path open to both bicycles and pedestrians. From Dorset to the Capitol Crescent Trail, that would just be a two-way bike lane. So that would not be open or advertised towards pedestrians. You know, as we've, you know, as many have pointed out, we do have the Capitol Crescent Trail. So, you know, I think pedestrians would still need to stick to the Capitol Crescent Trail and existing pedestrian infrastructure.
Have you determined the traffic flow to and from the pool parking lot onto Hillendale? It is not clear if the exit entrance along Little Falls Parkway will be either an exit or entrance.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we're not going to be modifying the entrance to the Bethesda Pool from Hillendale Road. We know that during the summer season on swim events during the weekends, the parking lot is full and that there's a lot of traffic going to and from. What we are studying under this concept is looking at making the driveway from the Bethesda Pool parking lot to Little Falls Parkway a one-way emergency exit only. And the reason for that, as we touched on, was because the parking lot right now, for all of the year, functions as the de facto connection between the Capitol Crescent Trail and one connection to the Little Falls Trail at Hillendale Road. It's where that raised crosswalk is. So we know that there are occasionally conflicts between vehicles in the parking lot and with Little Falls Trail users trying to get to the Capitol Crescent Trail and vice versa. So by modifying the entrance, we think that not only can we potentially improve the traffic flow of vehicles trying to park in the lot, but we can also help mitigate potential conflicts between trail users and parking vehicles.
Published documents do not address the barriers, gate, etc., north of Arlington by the parking lot. Is all this included? One document shows a red line indicating perhaps, but others do not.
I'm sorry, Diane, you broke up a little bit there. I heard barriers north of the parking lot.
Sorry, the barrier, it says published documents do not address the barriers, gate, etc., north of Arlington by the parking lot.
Yeah, so I can touch on
So
that a little bit.
Included.
So north of Arlington on the north side, we're showing you know, pavement removal, which will narrow it down to just one lane northbound. We are you know, showing kind of improvements to the sidewalk and curb radius there, as well as improving connectivity to the sidewalk. But there isn't, essentially on the north side, there is not you know, bike ped access along Little Falls Parkway. On the south side, we're currently showing a kind of a trail barrier between the existing shared use path and the Capitol Crescent Trail that would provide good connectivity and protection for both bicyclists and pedestrians.
Thank you. Going to keep going here. How do we, okay, how do we get Montgomery County Parks to change their proposal?
Yeah, so
Is-
I can speak on that a little bit. You know, we've had an extensive public engagement process going through both the planning board and then through the Parks Housing and Planning subcommittee, as well as the full county council. So the proposal that we currently have is the county council approved configuration that we are moving forward with. That's what we have, you know, the local kind of approval to do. As we move towards final design, you know, we'll be reviewing any of the comments that come through, and our you know, we'll be taking a look to see if there's any, you know, minor alterations to the final design plans that we can be doing that might help, you know, meet the goals of the county council.
Okay. I think
We've lost Diane.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to jump in here. We've had some technical difficulties on our end, but we will continue to go through these questions. So next, so we've had a couple more questions again about were bridges considered. I know Kyle, Andrew, maybe you can repeat that.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Andrew.
In the 2019 facility plan, we did study as one concept a pedestrian bridge over Little Falls Parkway, but ultimately it was not recommended to the planning board for approval due to overall construction cost and environmental impacts in the stream valley buffer.
Okay. So next question, are you aware that last summer cars were parking along Hillendale approaching the Parkway when the pool lot was full, thereby blocking one of the 2 lanes of traffic on Hillendale?
Yes, we do know that during busy summer events, cars park almost wherever they want in that area.
Okay. Next question, who at parks should residents reach out to when dangerous situations arise due to increased cut-through traffic in our neighborhood?
We've shared on both our website and in other kind of materials, but we have a dedicated email address set up in relation to Little Falls Parkway. So that's lfp@montgomeryparks.org. I still check that regularly. So any complaints, you feel free to send them there.
Okay. And we'll, I think we can post that also to make sure folks are familiar with where to send those comments. Okay. So we have other questions about what about the other side of the parkway, where pedestrians will be present and at risk?
Yeah, so you know, on the north side of the parkway, we're showing essentially just closing off that vehicular lane with the low profile delineators and cross hatching. At this point, we're not considering that for bike or pedestrian access. That's just closing it off for the road diet.
Okay. Why wouldn't the extra northbound lane be open to pedestrians? The CCT in this area is often crowded.
Yeah, again, you know, I think from our perspective and from a safety perspective, if we were to look at opening one of these lanes to pedestrians, we would want to do kind of the full trail barrier like we've shown, you know, north of the trail crossing, and installing that on either the south side or the north side between Hillendale and Dorset creates some challenges from a fire and rescue perspective. You know, essentially these low profile separators allow fire and rescue to traverse into that lane. And so if we were to put up a permanent wooden barrier, which in our view is necessary for pedestrian safety, we wouldn't be able to provide that fire and rescue access that they've requested.
Okay. We had a few comments here. They're actually related to the town of Somerset. It sounded like they did a survey and residents were split 50-50 in terms of who supported the 2-lane configuration versus the 4-lane configuration. So no question there, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we've received those comments. Another just comment, thank you all for your hard work and professionalism. And then a few other comments or questions here. So who owns the parking lot north of Arlington? Well, maybe that's the first question. And then why is there no sidewalk connecting the parking lot to Arlington Crosswalk? And why is there no sidewalk connecting the parking lot to the sidewalk just north by the apartments? Why not include a sidewalk on the northbound side of the Parkway to connect with any sidewalk on Fairfax Road?
Yeah, so that parking lot is owned by the Parks Department. I can confirm that. We do show there is an existing connection from the parking lot up to the intersection of Arlington Road. I'm just looking so I can make sure I'm speaking as accurately as possible. But let's see. So, there is existing sidewalk on portions of Arlington on the north side, and so the access from the parking lot would connect to that. And then, as part of our proposal, we're showing kind of improved sidewalk connectivity between the Capitol Crescent Trail and that parking lot.
Okay. So related to the pool parking lot, it says, if you cut off the pool parking lot exit and entrance on Little Falls, isn't there a possible problem of cars backing up onto Little Falls as they are trying to turn right on Hillendale, so they can turn left into the parking lot?
I can field that one. We are providing a dedicated right turn lane on northbound Little Falls Parkway to Hillendale Road, and we're going to make sure that the queuing space available in that right turn lane has enough capacity for the peak demand.
Okay. And this question may have been answered earlier, but maybe just to repeat, if a two-lane road is considered sufficient between Arlington and Dorset and between River and Mass, why not continue the Parkway with 2 lanes between Dorset and River Road?
Yeah, I can repeat kind of what I said earlier, which is, we did the Dorset to Arlington, or a little bit north of Arlington, configuration as a pilot. The original open Parkway went all the way to River Road, and originally actually went all the way to Mass Ave. That's certainly something that could be looked at in the future, but for now we're focused on this section.
Okay. You stated that there will be no northbound bike lane past Arlington, yet there is a northbound bike lane above Fairfax. Why would you not connect all paths into one continuous solution up Glenbrook to Bradley?
Yeah, so the tricky part about doing that would be there's currently kind of a gap, and I'm just looking at the street view to make sure, but essentially the existing bike lane kind of where Fairfax is kind of terminates, and while that runs northbound, we're connecting to the existing shared use path, but there's certainly we can look at improving connectivity to the kind of counterflow bike lane itself, which kind of currently just kind of terminates into kind of nothing almost.
Okay. This is just a comment I'm just going to read. Cars coming up Little Falls from Massachusetts back up for many car lengths at River Road, reducing the Parkway to 2 lanes. We'll see the same problems from River to Arlington. You can't just average the number in a traffic study. It has to carry peak load.
Yeah, I'll just highlight that, the traffic studies that have been done, including the traffic study conducted by a consultant for, I believe, Kenwood, looked at the peak hour intersection volumes and found that all the intersections along this stretch are functioning at, I believe it was level A or level B, but certainly acceptable levels. So it's not just averaging, it's looking at those peak hour volumes as well. And we're finding they're all acceptable.
Okay, great. Thanks for that explanation. So we have another follow-up comment just on the town of Somerset. Somebody is saying that study or survey is old now, so they just want to make that clear for the record. And then following back up with the discussion about the parking lot, please look again at the park's parking lot north of Arlington. There is no paved connection from the lot to any sidewalk or crosswalk. So I think that's similar to the comment that we received earlier. Pedestrians face the same issues with and conflicts with vehicles in that lot.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we can look at as we proceed with detailed design.
Okay. And I think that is all the questions that we currently have queued up in the Q&A, but we are going to be here for a while longer. So if anything comes in, we would certainly respond. Mike, maybe can you put up on the screen the public comment location so that people are familiar with where to go to submit their comments?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, you get on our website. At the very top, there is a participate menu, and when you hover over that, a pull-down menu drops down, and there is a comment opportunity tab on our NCPC website. And then when you scroll down, you will see that part of the page is dedicated to Little Falls Parkway Improvements Project. And there is a comments button that I have circled in red. And when you click on that, up pops the submission portal. And that's how you actually submit your comments online through our website.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike. Again, we're gonna hold on here for a little while to see if any other questions come in. We're scheduled to be here till 9.
Yeah, and while we've got a little break, I'll just add again that, we have a ton of information on the Little Falls Parkway Vision Zero project page that kind of includes kind of a detailed history and links kind of to either the planning board or county council documents kind of each step of the way. So for anybody who's looking for more information, our website is a great place to look, and we'll continue to update that moving forward. And then in addition, we've got the LFP at montgomeryparks.org email address for anybody who is looking to send us any comments.
Okay, great. We did just had one comment going back to the Somerset survey. My comment was not completely read. The survey was done before the Little Falls Parkway became 2 lanes. Somerset residents are strongly in favor of going back to 4 lanes. Then we have another question here, and I think this is a little different. Can you install a signal specifically for bikes at Dorset to reduce conflict between bikes and cars turning right from the Parkway onto Dorset into Kenwood?
Yes. Let me just read this a little more closely. Yes, that's it's an interesting question. Our designs, as they are right now, have the buffered bike lanes terminating at Dorset Ave. We do have some Vision Zero kind of intersection improvements there that will have curb extensions and kind of a landing area. As we get into the detailed design, we'll certainly be looking more closely at how exactly the bikes transition. I do know from my time at MCDOT that bike signals can be a little challenging, especially when you have right turning cars. But we'll certainly look into making the bike connectivity as safe and well functioning as possible.
Okay. So another question, has a recent study been done on the number of pedestrians and cyclists using the road lane that has been closed to vehicle traffic? If yes, when was it done? I rarely see either.
Yeah, so we previously had trail counters out on the Parkway, and we're monitoring open Parkway counts. As we moved to kind of phase 2 of our pilot, which shifted all the traffic to one side, we didn't activate that space in any way, and didn't really continue. I know there's been a lot of discussion on the trail counts that we've previously collected, but we're trying to work towards a final permanent solution.
Okay, great. Another question, will these Q&As be posted online? We will post the recording of this meeting so that everybody has an opportunity to hear the questions as well as the answers. We'll be able to do that within a few days, and we'll coordinate with our team to make that available. So another follow-up question about the phase 2 road diet. Have you not collected any data?
Yeah, as I said, once we moved to phase 2, we stopped monitoring kind of use of that side of the Parkway, since it was rather unprogrammed and not really created into much of a park setting. So we're not monitoring any data there.
Okay, so that's all the questions that we currently have queued up. Again, we will wait here as folks are thinking about questions. So another one has come in. How can the public know about and attend community meetings with the Parks Department as they occur, such as the meeting scheduled next week? I think it just says scheduled with next week.
Yeah, so I can chime in on that. So yes, so we are meeting. The Citizens Coordinating Committee of Friendship Heights invited us to one of their meetings for next week. We'll be presenting a similar presentation to what's been posted on our website, and be available for a bit to answer questions. Again, that was a meeting that we were invited to. We're doing our best to keep the community informed through our website, we've collected. Might have lost me for a second.
I think Kyle may have
You're,
disconnected there.
yeah,
Can you guys hear me?
yeah, we
Yeah,
can hear you. Yeah.
So I was just adding that, in addition to updating our website and the recorded presentation Andrew and I have posted there, we have collected every email address that's previously reached out to either us or the county council through the web form that they had set up, and we'll be continuing to send updates through those means.
Okay, great. So we have another question that I think I can answer or partially answer. Can you explain again the authority of NCPC in this project? And then there's a follow-on, why doesn't the 1979 decision hold today? So just briefly, again, this goes back to Mike's presentation. So NCPC has review responsibility due to the Capper-Crampton Act. This act basically requires NCPC to either approve or disapprove the proposed use or determine whether it is consistent with the park purpose. So that is the charge of our commission. The parkland, and the reason for that is that the parkland was purchased with federal funds, and the act and related agreement with park and planning require it remain for park use. So again, we're not the project sponsor or the implementing agency, which again, in this case is Montgomery County Parks. Regarding the 1979, I think this is referring to a 1979 project. Obviously, that was not implemented, so it is up to the local jurisdiction to determine what the scope of the project is, and that's what's been referred to NCPC. And Diane, are you back on with us?
I'm back on.
Yep,
Yes.
she's there.
And I've been told that I'm not going to get kicked off again. Okay, and it does look like we have another question here. If the county council adopted this plan, what choice does Parks have but to proceed with any other alternatives?
Yeah, so you know, we've taken this through the planning board and the county council to get to you know, a county council supported plan. That's the plan that we're moving forward with and have brought to NCPC for review. So we're kind of bound by the county council's approval and direction.
Thank you. And again, we will continue to wait here to answer any other questions that may come our way. So. Oh, okay. So, Matt, what might lead NCPC to disapprove this plan?
I gotta unmute myself. So this kind of goes back to some of the earlier discussions about NCPC's role as well as the role of NEPA. So again, NCPC, the commission is determining whether the proposal is consistent with a park purpose. That is kind of the threshold question. Then the NEPA process is intended to guide the decision-making effort and to ensure that the decision maker, in this case our commission, makes an informed decision. NEPA does not require a denial if there are impacts, and as a result of NEPA, certainly mitigation measures could be identified and considered for the project. So
thank you. We have another question. When will Parkway changes begin? The present configuration is just unsafe and scary.
I'm happy to touch on that. So we're looking at potential NCPC action in May-June timeframe, which is going to coincide with the construction drawings and our design being at a 75% design level. So we would be looking to wrap up the actual construction drawings and permits throughout the summer of 2024. Hopefully have all our permits secured by the fall, and then construction in fall or late fall.
Okay, we have two comments here. Okay, I'm just going to read this. The statement above is wrong. No survey has been done after October 22nd survey of Somerset residents. When public submitted responses on the WUFU form right before the council vote, a large number of citizens expressed a desire to return to 4 lanes. 80% of the responses from the nearest neighborhoods opposed the park's approved plan and expressly requested a return to the pre-pandemic configuration of the Parkway, 2 lanes from Arlington Road to Hillendale with a wide median in the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing, and 4 lanes from Hillendale to Dorset Ave with the existing median. So that was comment number 1. And then Parks created the current operational configuration within days. Why can't it be undone as quickly?
I can touch on that. The interim pilot program was, well, it didn't take days. It took some time. We developed a construction drawing for it. We met with Montgomery County DOT to coordinate the changes as well as the modifications to the traffic signals. So it takes time to implement a change to a roadway. And in this case, this is going to be a permanent configuration that's going to involve more substantial construction as well as pavement removal, and of course the NCPC approval and other permits as well, which is why it's going to take a little more time.
Thank you. And here, what is the status of a purported lawsuit by Kenwood Citizens Association against Montgomery County challenging the road diet? Do either of you know anything about that?
I do not know the status of that. I don't know if Kyle knows either. That's something that we could certainly ask our
I can
general
answer.
counsel.
This is Ann Schuyler, General Counsel. I can answer that question. It was
Okay, great.
withdrawn. It was withdrawn by the Kentwood Citizens Association.
Thank you.
Just so everyone can see our anticipated calendar for our review. Again, the scoping period concludes March 29th. We anticipate to have a draft environmental assessment available for public comment and review at some point in April and May. That will be 30 days. And that will be posted to our website. We'll also send out notifications to everyone. We do plan on giving our commission a no action information presentation as part of a commission meeting in the spring. And then after that, our commission is scheduled to take a review action on the project late spring or summer. So I'll leave up this slide for a minute or two till we get our next question.
Okay, we have another question. Can you summarize crash or accident data with the road diet? Any increase or decrease in crashes?
Yeah, absolutely. The data is presented in detail in the previous planning board reports, but I can give a brief summary. In the year 2016, which is the year just previous to the implementation of the interim road diet at the Capitol Crescent Trail crossing, there were, I believe, six to eight conflicts, which consists of both crashes between cars in that stretch, as well as conflicts at the trail crossing itself. Since implementation of the interim road diet along that stretch, we found that there have been zero crashes at the trail crossing, and there's substantial reduction in overall vehicle crashes. I think only one or two, off the top of my head. I can go back and check that number, but we saw a pretty significant reduction in crashes and hence, slower vehicle speeds. So we were pretty happy about that from a safety perspective.
And that's all the questions we have at this moment, but we will still be here until 9 o'clock to answer any additional questions.
There's a question, Diane. Oh, I think you're on.
Thank you. Will the unsightly brown metal gates at the intersection of Dorset and the Parkway be taken down?
Yeah, I think we could certainly look at that. Those gates were installed during the open Parkway phase when those lanes were shut down for pedestrian and cycle use on the weekends. So with the permanent configuration, they would not be needed. So we can certainly look at taking those barriers down, as well as other barriers that are no longer required.
Thank you. Okay. And Matt, I have a question for you here. The environmental impacts, the purpose of this so-called study, seem pretty minimal, non-existent. Other than community controversy, what impacts trigger this heightened review? The EA.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. You somewhat alluded to it in your comment. Essentially, we, speaking with Montgomery Parks, we understood that there was a pretty significant community interest in this project. And so for that reason, NCPC determined it was appropriate to pursue an EA, because that allows us to engage the community that is already very familiar with this project and make sure that they were aware of the process. So.
And Matt, I apologize, but I'm breaking up again, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, no problem. We do have a follow-on. This is just a comment. It says, taking down the metal barriers will go a long way in creating goodwill. Please make Little Falls Parkway beautiful again. Thank you. So thank you for that comment. Okay, we have a few other questions. So what analysis of driver behavior will be performed after installation? This design increases the likelihood of speeding in the median separated design. Also, the right turn lane leading to Arlington will encourage drivers to focus on the free flow opportunity for right turns onto Arlington, thereby risking crashes with trail users crossing Little Falls.
Yeah, I can touch on that one. So after we implement any permanent configuration, we would follow that up with a monitoring period where we can do regular traffic counts as well as regular vehicle traffic speed studies. We continuously monitor crash stats. Anytime there is an incident on Little Falls Parkway or any park road or any park crossing, park police provide us with an incident report, so we're able to see what factors may have led to that. So we're going to continuously do that at this location as well, even more stringently than we do on a typical park road, to be honest, just because of the level of attention that is being paid to this section. I think there was a question in there also about the right turn lane from Little Falls Parkway to Arlington Road about potential for picking up speed. That is a good point, but one way we're going to mitigate that is with the presence of the raised crosswalk at the crossing of the Capitol Crescent Trail itself, which will help slow vehicles down, as well as the presence of the stoplight at the intersection of Arlington Road and Little Falls Parkway.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we have another question. It says, following up on that previous question, this is related to NEPA. Are you basically saying there are no other environmental impacts? So I'll just say again, we are undertaking an EA because we have an approval authority, or the commission, NCPC, has an approval authority over the project per the Capper-Crampton Act, which makes it, again, the federal action. This is subject to NEPA. And again, based on our review of the project scope, we think an EA is appropriate. And preliminarily, we believe we could likely get to a finding of no significant impact. So, okay, so we have a few other questions that have come in. Does Parks plan to do further automated counts of traffic on streets feeding into Little Falls Parkway like Dorset to determine any impacts of the new configuration on the neighborhood traffic? So this is somewhat related to a previous question.
Yes, absolutely. The traffic study area would encompass adjacent neighborhood streets as well.
Okay, and then a new question. As a frequent driver, I've noticed that the signage approaching the trail crossing on Little Falls northbound is too close to the crossing. Could a sign be put further ahead as well to warn of the approaching crosswalk?
Yes, absolutely. That's something that we could look at.
Okay, great. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes, so we will hold on, and perhaps we'll put back up the comment period just so everybody is familiar. And while we're waiting for just a few more minutes, if there are any last questions, I do want to just mention that if you are interested in receiving notifications of NCPC agendas, upcoming this project, please go to our website, ncpc.gov. There's a tab, Participate, where you can both comment, and you can also subscribe. That way you can receive notifications about both NCPC agendas and future events. So that's also a good way to stay in touch. And again, we appreciate everybody's participation today. Again, if you have comments, they must be submitted in writing, either by mail or through our portal. So please do so before March 29th.
So before this is over, I just want to just thank everybody again for joining us. Thanks to NCPC for hosting and letting us participate in this. We really appreciate it. I'll just flag again that we have the lfp@montgomeryparks.org email address that you can feel free to send any comments to, as well as the Little Falls Pilot Project website, which has a full detailed history and links to important documents that you can review. I think at this point, Andrew and I are probably going to sign off here. But again, thanks to all the NCPC staff for hosting and letting us participate. And we look forward to going through the process and getting these changes implemented. Thank you all.
Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And again, I will mention that we will post this video for those who are not able to join us today. Likely within a few days, you'll have that opportunity to come back to our website and see this. So. And I think we have just a few more comments are coming in. One is the Parks Department team are real heroes. Well, we will be sure to relay that to them. I think they just signed off. And then another comment, this is just following up on the statement that 80% of the responses from the nearest neighborhoods oppose the park's approved plan is false. The WUFU survey was not of Somerset residents. So before the last few attendees exit, I just want to say on behalf of the National Capital Planning Commission, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We appreciated the questions. Again, please submit your comments in writing by the 29th to be considered. That's important to the process. And as Mike has mentioned, there will be additional opportunities for participation as we lead up to our commission's review of this project. So. We'll hold on for a minute or two, but I think most folks have already exited. So we do have another question. Any data on changes in drag racing on Little Falls Parkway? It seems that there is a definite reduction since the road diet was instituted. Does Park and Planning track complaints of drag racing that are made to the police? NCPC, we don't have the answer for that, but we will certainly check with Park and Planning to see if they have a response, and we can make that response available on our website. So thank you for the question.
So just to mention the time frame one more time, our scoping period will run through March 29th. Then we will be releasing a draft environmental assessment for public review and comment at some point in April going into May. That will be a 30-day comment period. Staff will be providing the commission with no action information presentation in the spring. And then the anticipated schedule is for our commission to review the project at some point late spring or summer of this year. So that is the review schedule. Again, you can find out more information through the Montgomery Parks website or through our website. And again, here's the final slide that shows how you may submit written comments either online or in the mail to NCPC.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.